intro.
Dude.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Stregi, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did.
And we're on.
Alrighty. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but today we are starting a new month, and this is kind of a birthday month for Tammy, so happy birthday. I know it's a little early, but we're doing one of your picks tonight. So why don't you tell us which movie that sucks you picked tonight?
Haha, doesn't suck.
Well, the characters in it certainly do.
Interview with a Vampire is what I picked.
Okay. And it's a film that was filmed in 1994, and it was directed by Neil Jordan, and he'd just gotten off of The Crying Game. And he was told to read this novel because he hadn't actually read the novel yet, and he did, and he loved it. So he put all of his projects that he was doing on the side, and filmed this movie, and it stars. We've got Brad Pitt. We got Tom Cruise. We got a very young Kirsten Dunst, and we've got one more actor that I know offhand is the guy who played Armand, and we well know him.
Here's Antonio Banderas.
Yes, Antonio Banderas. Mr.
And
Puss
one of the
in
other
Boots.
ones is that plays Santiago. What was his name now?
Stephen Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching
Christian
a little
Slater.
bit behind the scenes stuff, and this film was actually 20 years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
They kept talking about it and then talking about it and then talking about it, type of thing. So it wasn't something that happened overnight.
Well, yeah, and I know that when Anne Rice was actually asked to do the screenplay for this, she was like, "I don't know if I can go, but it's been 15 years since I wrote the novel. I don't know if I can actually get back into the characters or not." But she did, and this is what transpired. And this was the first adaptation.
And even the novel, it started out as a short story, and she put it aside for a couple of years, and then picked it back up, and then she said that everything just flowed, and then it turned into what it ended up being.
Oh yeah.
So all the way around, even the novel itself took a while to produce, besides the movie.
Well, yeah, and as we know, there are quite a few novels in the vampire series that started in this novel. So, that being said, I suppose what I should do is look up the IMDb real quick. Give me 1 second here. Interview.
Yeah, Anne Rice's picture of the vampire is a whole lot different than what we had been used to up until now. She makes him a little bit more romantic and a little bit more I guess I want to say a little bit more human in a way, because you know, there's you've got elements of um, humor. There's thoughts. It's the her whole thing onto it is that it's not just they're not just coming up and fighting people. Okay, there's more to it with her vampires. So
Okay, so IMDb says a vampire tells his epic life story, love, betrayal, loneliness, and hunger. Vague, but there you go. So,
which is kind of what I just said in a way, because we were used to the original vampires not really having much of a storyline behind them. They're all of a sudden
I'm
there's a
not
vampire.
sure. I'm not sure where you're getting that, because Dracula has an extraordinarily complex story. And when this movie came out, there were not nearly the glut of vampire films there are now.
Well, I meant that not that there was the storyline. I meant that you just because of how this one is done, you see like a whole background, a whole it makes it more. You almost kind of see him more as a human, not just a vampire.
Right.
I mean,
the
Bram
way that she
Stoker
does it.
never did it for, where he had someone sit down with Dracula and he told his story.
Yeah. I guess what you're saying is Lewis, in particular, never refuses to let go of his humanity, and that is a different take than the Dracula version. I get that. I'm trying to think of other versions that may have done that before.
It's just like her vampires seem a little bit more human than what we traditionally thought of with vampires.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, yeah, because these vampires have reflections. They also do not get bothered by crucifixes.
Yeah, I did like how Lewis basically shot down, or Louis, I guess, how he basically shot down so many of the traditional ones, and most of the ones that are true are ones that were not part of the official lore, or not originally.
To be fair and honest, one of them that he shot down was the traditional stake to the heart.
Yeah,
and
the cross.
Well, I already mentioned that.
Yeah.
But
which actually saw
apparently
that one.
The way to kill a vampire is by cutting off their head.
Well,
sunlight still kills them in this one.
Yeah, and that's one of the more effective scenes. But anyway. So have we started impressions?
No, we have not yet. Tammy, why don't you bring us into impressions?
Okay, Jake, why don't you go first?
Okay. This is one that I've seen some time ago. I honestly don't know when I first saw this movie. I couldn't say. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I saw it at some point. I want to say in high school, maybe. I did not see it immediately when it came out. I don't know if I watched it at home or with friends, but I'm almost sure I saw this before going to college. I definitely saw it not long after that, but I'm almost sure. How many times I've seen it over the years, I couldn't say that either, but I'd say this is probably at least the fourth time. But it's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen this one. And I've always found it kind of interesting, but mixed feelings. I I never liked Tom Cruise's Lestat. And
Ditto.
this time around, I got the impression that it wasn't so much. I haven't read the books, so I can't say truly if he was miscast or not. I know Anne Rice was absolutely livid that he was cast, but changed her mind after seeing the movie. But it took a while for that to happen.
Well, yeah, she in that behind the scenes thing, she seemed to praise him being Lestat.
Apparently that she did not. She like disowned the movie until a friend made her watch it, and then she's like, "Yeah, wow, okay." But I think it's more I don't like the character, and Tammy, you're right that a lot of these characters, Louis in particular, is quite humanized. Claudia is a fascinating character, and Armand is a bit of a cipher, but he's interesting nonetheless. But Lestat is just a prick. I don't like him, and I think the fact that he's played by Tom Cruise just exacerbates that feeling. I did like Cruise go villainous in a couple of roles he did. Like Collateral, he was great as a villain in that one. Playing an absolute shameless asshole in Tropic Thunder. Like, I like seeing Cruise go dark, but something is just off about this pairing of him and Lestat. It doesn't work for me, and I've never liked it. On the other hand, I absolutely am floored by how well Kristen Dunst handled her character. I do hold this up as a brilliant example of child acting. I think she did a fantastic job as Claudia. And it's part of the reason why I used to be a much bigger fan of hers than I am. Now it's cooled a little bit, but for a while there, I was a big fan. For Brad Pitt, this is middle of the road. I've seen him in better. I've seen him worse. Like, he just maintains. The movie overall, I think I'm more interested in it. I like vampire stuff. It is something that appeals to me. I am very interested in. I read Dracula many years ago. I've always liked the story. I've always liked different variations on a theme. We've covered a few vampire films on the channel. Let the Right One In was just a phenomenal film. The American remake was great. Not as keen of the Twilight movies. And I have to admit, your other choice for this month, Queen of the Damned, is one I've never seen. So I look forward to, that. But so the subject matter has my interest. But on this viewing and I think a lot of it is just right now, my overall ambivalence about movies general right now. I did not get into it as much as I have in the past. I think I was able to get some enjoyment out of it, but this time around, it kind of left me colder than I expected. I'm just going to say that. I mean, it's a good movie. Flawed, could have been better, but good. And I'm kind of glad I got to revisit it, but yeah, it's, I want to say I expect better from this cast, but and I read some of the also runs, like they apparently considered Sam Raimi to direct. They apparently almost cast Daniel Day-Lewis for Lestat. Anne Rice apparently wanted Tom Hanks. Johnny Depp was also in consideration. Any one of those would have been a very different take on the character. So it's interesting to think about. But
well, the guy that is playing Lestat in the next one, Queen of the Damned, I think did very well. What was his name again, David?
Stuart Townsend.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that was one reason I never saw that, because I knew it was the same. Like, I knew it was the same series, but it was like a completely different cast, wasn't it? Like, no,
Yeah, it
almost.
was definitely a completely different
Yeah.
cast. It was definitely had a '90s feel, and I would have to say that Korn was really huge at the time. So,
Okay.
Korn, I think, was the singer of Korn or the singer of Disturbed. The singer of Disturbed was somewhat behind some of the music that was used, because in that movie he was more of a musician, and showed that he had musician talents. So
Right.
he took on the facade of a rock band, which that's all I'll say.
Okay.
Before scaring you off it.
We see him doing the piano here, but yeah.
Yeah, and he was more human in that one than they made him more human,
Hmm.
and made it more about Lestat, and his relationship with Marius, which was his maker,
Okay.
which you don't even see Marius at all in the interview. So,
Okay.
But that being said, that's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right.
are you finished with your?
Yeah.
Okay. Then let's go over to you, Brandon. What were your first impressions?
Well, this was my first time seeing it entirely. I have watched it in pieces in the past, and I've had an interest, but my interest in vampire movies is about middle of the road. I can usually take or leave them. Anne Rice, I always considered her stuff as sort of like the kind of thing similar to those books with muscly guys on the cover, except with vampires, and a lot more bloody in a way. It's that romanticization of it. But Interview was a good movie. I did like it. I actually do like Cruise's take on Lestat. I thought it was a pretty good take. And of course, Kirsten Dunst did excellent with her role as the little girl. It was an intriguing movie. Though from what I was told when I was watching it, there was a lot of detail left out that was in the book that could have answered some questions that came up here and there. So it might be worth checking out the book to double check.
Yeah, it's a big book, and this is just a 2-hour movie. So.
But again, I thought a lot of it was very interesting, and I'm glad I finally had an excuse to watch it. And that is all I have to say about that.
Okay. Tammy, did you go into your first impressions yet?
No, not yet. I do know that I saw this when it came out because I've always been the vampire freak, So, and at the time this came out, I was starting to pay more attention to who was in movies and stuff a little bit. I was starting to get into that a little bit more than just like, oh, there's a movie. So I knew that there was actually a really good cast, you know. Um, I do have to say, since I was just starting to get into paying attention to actors and stuff like that, at first I didn't realize who was who at first, and then I did, because to me, Tom Cruise doesn't look anything like Tom Cruise, So I do have to admit that at first I didn't really realize that you know, that he was Lestat, but um, I read the book before the movie, and yes, there's definitely things in the book that were not in the movie. Um, and by the time the movie came out, I had actually read like the first like 2 or 3 books of hers in this series. So, um, I was very excited when the movie came out to see it. Um, yeah, I think everybody did a pretty good job. I'm kind of in the middle of the road as far as Tom Cruise being Lestat. It's it's weird to see him in that type of a role, and in some ways, um, it's like I don't know how to say it. It almost felt like he didn't give it his all as far as that character, especially if you've read the book. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but um, I definitely liked Antonio Banderas as Armand, and I think Brad Pitt did okay as Louis, and Kristen. Yes, in the behind the scenes, she was talking about it and um, said that she really enjoyed the other people she worked, the other actors she worked with, and it was quite challenging because she was still a kid and to try and come up with emotions and things at different parts of it. She said it was quite challenging to portray those emotions, because she was still a kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think she did pull it off very well. And the guy that plays Santiago, I think he did a really good job too. He and the behind the scenes, he said he studied um acting and comedy in Paris, and he did a whole bunch of studying because he wanted his character to be in character, and so he wanted to see, how how comedy was in Paris and how and everything. So I think he did a really good job. I think he, by doing his studying, like he said, it helped bring out his character. So, but yeah, I think it was pretty good. I mean, it is so hard for um like Stephen King or Anne Rice or everybody out there to take their novels and put them into a movie, because if you try and get everything that's in that novel into a movie, you're going to be sitting at the movie theater for 20 hours, you know, and they, and the writers, they all know that there's no way that you could put everything that they have in their book
Mm-hmm.
into a movie. It just it can't, you know.
And it's widely considered sort of a truism of the business that, like, when you have a novelist try to adapt their own work for the screen, it's a totally different medium. So sometimes you get them hit it out of the park, like Gillian Flynn doing Gone Girl. But most of the time it can be really clunky. And apparently, in this case, the director, Neil Jordan, rewrote the screenplay heavily. So I really wonder if how much of Rice's screenplay ended up in the end. Uh, but whether it would have been smoother just to hire a scriptwriter in the first place. I guess we'll
Well,
never know. But
well, from what I remember about the book, I think
uh-huh.
the movie does stay pretty true to the
Right.
book and everything, but it's yeah.
Mhm.
I actually wouldn't have minded if it was just a tad bit longer, just to fill in a few things, you know.
Right.
But overall, yeah, I was not disappointed when I went and saw that when it came out. I mean, I saw Bram Stoker's when it came out. In fact, a bunch of us went to go see the Bram Stoker one, and it was sold out. So we had to buy the tickets for the next showing. So
Huh.
we were gonna go to the movie and go to dinner. So it was like, well, I guess we're gonna go to dinner and then go to the movie. So this one, I mean, I think it did pretty good, but I don't think it had quite as much of a hype as when Bram Stoker's came out. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, like I said at the beginning, it's like a totally. I mean, I really like the old vampire movies. And all that. I really get into those. So it is a totally, to me, it's like a totally different take on it. And then, well, we won't get into the glowing vampires that came out too. The glittery vampires, that's a totally different take too.
Right.
But at least she doesn't go there.
Right.
but but yep, I was happy with it when it came out. I mean, I've watched this movie several times. There's been plenty of times where I was looking for something to watch on TV and it was on. I was like, well, why not? You know. So don't get sick of it. So, all right, David, your turn.
Okay, so I had actually read Interview with the Vampire, Queen of the Damned, and Lazarus, at least, growing up. Loved the series. There was an erotic side of vampirism that I had not seen before in vampire literature. And I don't look at her novels as being just your random pick of the draw of romantic novels that you see a vampire or whatnot, like Brandon had said. I think that Anne Rice is cream of the crop. She's like ahead of all of those. Like even Nora Roberts did some. I'd say Nora Roberts was more the run of the mill, juicy, you know, or Maggie Shane. Maggie Shane had a very interesting take of the vampire blood in her series, but yet she was definitely one of those that you'd see the big-breasted women with the vampire biting the neck, in your romance novel aisle. But that being said, I hated Tom Cruise in that role. That was absolutely pure shit. I mean, I at the time when I saw this, I could not watch the movie any further after seeing his role. Now, after not seeing it and not finishing, well, I've watched it with Tammy quite a few times over and over because it's one of the ones she likes. I've gotten sort of used to Tom Cruise in that particular role in this particular movie. And I will say this, the makeup on him is astounding. Whoever did the makeup on him as he progressed into his non-drinking vampiric role
Yeah.
towards the end did a phenomenal job doing the transformation of progressing to that. Because there were several different stages you actually saw him in, to say the least, to show
Yeah, that reptilian stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a good job with the makeup, that's for sure.
So that part I won't knock because on anyone that could have been in the role, that would have worked phenomenally for whoever should have actually done it differently. And as it wasn't until I saw Queen of the Damned that I actually thought, well, why didn't they find Stuart Townsend then? You know, because he did it so much better. He was phenomenal in it, and I wish they could have brought or at least found him at that time. But it was also 1994. Not sure what the year the other one was. And I think Stuart Townsend.
I want to say 2001. Let's see.
Yeah, something like that.
2002.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure Stuart Townsend would have been old enough for the role. To be fair and honest, but yeah, that's how I feel on that. But Armand, I wish he would. Unfortunately, I wish he was more.
Stuart Townsend would have been 18. Wait, that doesn't sound right. 22. He would have been 22.
Yeah, still
A little younger.
I don't think he had the chops then, you know.
Yeah.
But as far as the character of Armand, I wish he would have been more gay than he was. I don't know how to say it. More alphabet soup like. There we go.
More so?
Because that's how he should have played the role, you know?
I thought he did.
I don't think he sold it entirely.
Huh.
At least not to me. He got close to him. He looked him in the eyes. He got almost lip to lip with him, but I feel like he could have. He had to play it a little bit more erotically for me.
I think the producers were afraid to go too far down that road.
Unfortunately, that's exactly the way that Anne Rice kind of played it in her novels, because vampires are very erotic creatures in her realm of things. And though I do think the makeup on both Louis and Armand were fantastic, and the eye thing that they did with their eyes that way, I thought that was pretty cool. I still think there should have been a level of eroticism that should have been shown on screen. I feel like it was too tame. And you know, growing up, I had an affinity or a dislike for seeing anything that portrayed the alphabet soup nature in people. But as I've grown up, I've gotten used to it in our culture and seeing it on screen and don't mind it. But here, especially in this element of things, I think it was missing that erotic gayness that it needed. So I'm sorry. There's no other way around me saying it, but that's how I feel about this. But I do think Kirsten Dunst was a phenomenal actress at the time, and she just blossomed after this. You know, she grew into a very pretty girl, and she's still a very beautiful woman. You can see that in The Power of the Dog. you know. So,
Right.
but yeah, I enjoyed this movie. If I don't think about Tom Cruise too much.
Well, when he's staring right at you whenever you look at the cover poster, then you gotta.
I know. I just when I watch this movie, I imagine he doesn't exist.
Well, for much of the film, he doesn't, or at least isn't on screen.
Well, I imagine he's still down there wrestling gators. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't kill him off right then and there. But
I will say to your point, one, I think it absolutely, it may be on the director, on Neil Jordan, but it almost certainly is on the producers. Anything they may have done to tone down any erotic elements to the film. And it just goes to my point that I keep saying that in America, for whatever reason, like there is some very graphic violence in this film. There's not a lot. For a vampire film, there's not a huge amount of violence. But what is shown, some of it is pretty graphic. And I'm sure we'll mention a couple of those moments, but you do get the feeling that they're holding back. And part of it is on the eroticism, but there are other parts too that you just feel like they were holding back. And I will say maybe one reason why I had kind of a reaction this time is the movie does feel safe. It does feel tame. Like it does feel like they could have gone places they didn't go. And I absolutely do not put it on Antonio Banderas. I have seen him do exactly what you were just talking about in other films.
I have too, which is why I'm not entirely putting it on him.
I don't think it was on him at all. Pitt may have been holding back. I don't know. Although he can be a great actor too. But I feel like he has apparently gone on record saying that making this movie was a miserable experience for him. And part of that had to do with the makeup. Both he and Kristen Dunst were uncomfortable with a couple of their scenes together. He may have been uncomfortable with the scenes with Banderas. I don't know. But I do know that overall, he looks uncomfortable for much of the film, which is unfortunate, but it overall, though, I do think that at the end of the day, the director and the producers probably tamed down a lot of what they could have done with the film. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was in the original screenplay that Rice presented,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I enjoy the film and the foray into the world of Anne Rice.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Tammy, why don't you bring us into the plot?
Well, at the beginning, Louis he's miserable. His wife and child died in childbirth, and he doesn't care about life anymore. He's a plantation. He's a plantation owner, and he's just going through the motions of being alive. He doesn't care about a lot of things, and it doesn't care if he lives or dies or anything. And Lestat ends up hearing this because Lestat has got the ability to hear people's thoughts. So Louis kind of like came onto Lestat's radar, if you want to say it that way. And he basically he gave him the choice, and he's that's one of his things that he said a few times right at the beginning, and I'm going to give you the choice that I never had, so
Even though Louis kind of sort of like blames him for bringing making him a vampire later on.
right, because he didn't understand the whole scope of everything. Yes, he was given the choice, but I don't think he understood the whole scope of actually being a vampire. And so yes, Lestat takes Louis on, and I think he got a lot more than he bargained for too, because Louis does not. Throughout the whole movie, Louis does not lose his sense of humanity. Where
Right.
Lestat has lost that a long time ago.
At one point, Louis claims that he finally lost his humanity, but even after that point, he still tries to hang on a little bit.
Right, and it's obvious that Lestat has lost his a long time ago.
Right. Which there is one thing that I don't know if I noticed before for whatever reason, but I definitely noticed it this time. And there is one major issue with Louis being the sympathetic focal point of the movie. He keeps talking about his keeping his humanity and all this kind of stuff. And you do sympathize. He lost his wife in childbirth, if I remember correctly, and that's why he wanted to die in the first place. And Claudia becomes a surrogate daughter to him, and obviously that eventually leads to tragedy and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, he is a slave owner who ran a plantation with a whole bunch of slaves, and the movie never fully grapples with that. I don't know if the book does or not, but that hit me out of the blue this time, and I'm like, oh.
He even made some indications that he was having an affair with one of his slaves.
Right. Yeah.
It makes me wonder how good a person Louis really was at the end of the day.
Right. I mean, he's not total shit, and he looks like a prince next to Lestat, but
I don't think he ran his plantation as a hard ass though.
Well, no, you don't get that impression. But I mean, again, the simple fact of the matter is never once does he give any indication that he saw that as an inappropriate way to live, or even later on reflecting on it, he says nothing. So again, I don't know if that's mentioned in the novel, but I felt like that was a major character flaw.
See, at the time that he was living, nobody thought that was wrong. So,
at the time he was turned, yes, but much of the film takes place much more recently than that.
I know, but you cannot change a leopard from its spots.
Right.
You cannot.
Right.
So the thoughts that he grew up with would probably stay with him, and in this present state of him speaking, he would still be thinking the way that he had thought then.
But he did end up freeing them all. He told them all, "Go, you're free."
Well, yeah, he did. He did. I think he did that more out of. He genuinely was afraid that he would end up killing more of them, and so he did apparently value their lives. So I give him points on that. He definitely values human life to a far greater degree that Lestat does. And so, like I said, next to Lestat, he looks like a hero. It's just, comparatively speaking, I had more trouble going for him this time than before. But you should start, I don't know if you mentioned the framing device that we have for the whole film, which is the actual interview, which is really what we start with. And we've got Christian Slater's character who's interviewing him. And I do want to mention something. I saw when this one ended, it said they dedicated it to River Phoenix. And I'm like, well, isn't that nice? But what I didn't realize was that the interviewer was going to be played by River Phoenix. He was set to go, and he passed away right before photography got underway. So Christian Slater was like a last-minute substitution for that role, which I think another reason I was ambivalent about this film before was I was always ambivalent about Christian Slater. But I've come to appreciate him a lot more than I used to, and I think he's good in that particular part. But finding out that River Phoenix almost played the part, like within 3 weeks, I think, it gives the movie kind of an interesting dark tinge to it.
See, I could almost see this Christian Slater being a future version of his character in Pump Up the Volume.
Well, what's interesting that you bring that up is I thought about that, and in the new interview series, guess who's playing the role of the interviewer?
Who's that?
The guy from Talk Radio.
Eric Bogosian?
Yeah, he is playing the interviewer in the TV series, which is the only other adaptation of this.
That's a much older character.
Yes.
Much older character.
So I thought that was interesting since Christian Slater had actually played in Pump Up the Volume.
Right.
And they both played in talk radio movies.
I wonder if they were cognizant of that.
In a way, having an older character portray the interviewer could work out more for the ending.
Yeah.
Because it's far more, mortality is far more tempting when you're looking at the other side of life than it would be when you're young.
I have to admit, that his reaction, I fully get it. And it was one of Brad Pitt's stronger parts in the movie is like, you listen to my story and that's your takeaway, basically. It's like, I think this guy, and you're right, an older person might be more likely to say, you know what, screw it, I'm going for it. I could be wrong, though. I think a really young person who literally doesn't know better would also be likely to. So it could work either way.
Yet Christian Slater is neither one or the other in this.
Yeah.
I think, he is, I think he's just good as being the interviewer. He's just, his attitude at first, though, he is very, very naive as far as what he's taking on,
Yeah.
But as it progresses, he seems to be, then he seems to start to get it, but
Well, it's natural for someone to be skeptical. I mean, come on. Someone said to you, hey, I'm a vampire. Let me tell you my story. You're probably going to look at that person sideways a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
It all started 200 years ago.
It was still a little bit comical. He's like, you don't mind if I have a cigarette, right? Oh, yeah. It's not like you're going to die from secondhand smoke, right?
Well, I mean, it depends on your take on vampires. Apparently in this one, strong scents don't matter. But like most versions, they would have probably been furious because vampires are usually portrayed as having very, very, very well-developed sense of smell. It'd be like,
I know. And then when he goes and turns on the light, he's like, well, I didn't think you liked light. He goes, no, I like light,
Yeah. Sunlight they don't care for.
Right.
Right.
But yes, you're right. We should touch that at the very beginning. That that is how it starts out. That this the whole thing is basically Christian Slater's character is interviewing Louis and for
Mhm.
his life story of being a vampire. So that's basically what the whole movie is about. Is he's telling his story.
Mhm.
So yes. So Lestat's got a little bit more than what he bargained for in making Louis a vampire because Louis is still
He's
wanting to keep his
rebelling,
humanity,
and
Right.
his humanity, and
excuse me if I still have a little bit of what did he say? Uh, Passion about humanity, or something
Like
similar to that.
some like respect for human life or something.
Yeah.
The yeah, I think Lestat thought, oh, it'll be great fun. I mean, one, this guy already lives in a mansion, so I can just move into a mansion. And I guess he also thought Louis would be like his wingman or something. And only to find out that, well, Louis, I guess the technical term would be party pooper. He's not the most fun person, at least not in Lestat's view. Yeah. I mean, really, it is. Lestat makes a point of saying, I'm going to give you a choice because I was never given one. And he does that a couple of times. He makes a point of saying, I'm going to give you a choice. But he goes to people who really don't have much of a choice. And like Louis wants to end it all. He's done. He lost his wife and kid. He wants to die, but he's also afraid of it. And when the push comes to a shove, he accepts the chance to go on, knowing that it's not what he needs or wants. And basically, from that moment, he hates Lestat passionately for hundreds of years because in a moment of weakness, he chose to live. Well, not live, but like continue.
right.
Yeah.
But yes, Lestat gets very annoyed with him numerous times. It's like yes, like when they're at the dinner table that one time, and he goes and catches that rat and puts the blood in the glass, and he gives it to Louis, and Louis is like, oh, so we don't have to take human life. He goes, well, yeah, you don't have to if you want to consider that an existence.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, so they are running into problems staying on the plantation because the slaves, especially the pretty young one that works in the house itself, notices that she puts out a meal that doesn't get eaten, you know, and they're also noticing the slaves themselves are noticing things. People are dying. All the chickens are dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a rat infestation anymore. But that's and yes, one night Louis just that's it. He takes the young lady that was working, a slave that was working in the house, and then he tells he tells all the slaves goodbye.
Well, he loses control and accidentally kills her, and yeah, he's like, yeah, that's not going to work. He sets the whole place afire, and yeah,
which just infuriates Lestat. And that's when he says, "You burned up everything we had," you know.
yeah.
And it's like, how did it go to we already? You know, this wasn't yours.
Well, Lestat's a moocher.
Right. In Lestat's eyes, it was his because he made Louis, but technically, it wasn't his. You know.
And that's one of the reasons I don't like Lestat is because he has. I'm not sure he's a textbook narcissist, but he definitely has narcissistic tendencies, and he definitely thinks very highly of himself. And
yes, even in she does. Anne Rice has a book that is just Lestat, and you get to know Lestat better. And yes, he is very, very full of himself. So when we get to the other movie of this month, you'll see some of that of how much Lestat is full of himself. So, but yep, the house burns down. They end up back in the graveyard, and but before that, they've gone to some galas, you want to call it, and Louis says that he's what is it? He likes to start out with it was
he has an order of
right
preferred.
I think it's like a young woman first, a young lad, and then it has to end it with an aristocrat or something like that. Is how it goes.
Aristocrats, really?
I'm sorry, I just watched that the other day.
Pitt does. Louis does kill a couple of Arista dogs. Yeah.
Yes, that was that was something else. And that was just like poodles.
Those poodles.
So we're gonna live on rats and poodles.
Huh.
I remember when I saw that scene for the first time, it was just like he did not. He did. He just ate the poodles. Okay.
Right in front of their owner too. And she's sitting there screaming, and Lestat comes up and breaks her neck so she'll stop screaming. Yeah.
So I think from there I think that's when they took off to actually Paris.
Wasn't it New Orleans that they went to? I don't think Louis went to Paris until it was later with Claudia.
Oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
So they were still in New Orleans with the next young lady scene where Lestat is the two young ladies, and you see Lestat is having his way with one, and the other one is just she's getting drunk and not even paying attention to what she thinks that they're just making out, him and her friend. And then when it comes to her, Lestat is like totally offering her up to Louis, and he's just not having any part of it, And then this scene shows just how much Lestat has lost his humanity in this. The way he treats that young lady, he bites her, and she's like, and she's freaking out. She sees all the blood down her dress, and is that blood? Is that blood? And and he's like, well, yes, it is. And then when he puts her in the coffin, she's like, that's a coffin. Yes, that's a coffin. It's just he is just so cruel to this poor girl that's freaking. You know.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you guys think of that scene?
What was I think I know which scene you're talking about. I'm trying to remember. It was, Helen McCrory plays one of the two there. There was Indra Ove and Helen McCrory. So McCrory, I think, passed recently, but she was a really solid actress. There were a few people here that were like not as well known as they became later. But actually, the slave that we talked about, Yvette, was Tanya Newton, also one of her early movie roles, I believe. But yeah, that's an interesting scene. But like you said, pretty. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway.
I think not long afterwards is where Louis ends up going and ends up going for a walk and ends up where there was the plague had gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he comes across the little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just he thinks that he has killed her until Lestat shows up. And that's another scene where Lestat is just off the wall. He starts dancing around with the poor little girl, Claudia's mother, dead mother.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, between the two of them, they end up making Claudia, because Louis thought that he had actually killed her, which he hadn't, and Lestat finished things off and turned her.
Mm-hmm.
So now they have this beautiful little girl vampire.
Mm-hmm.
With an insatiable thirst.
Well, and it's kind of a little bit unfair to her because she will never grow up, neither.
Well, as we learn eventually, yes, was very unfair to her. And we find out later that apparently there are rules, which, of course, Louis didn't know because Lestat didn't tell him shit. And you don't really know in this movie how many of the rules Lestat knows, but he definitely did not. He left Louis with so many questions because he just didn't care to tell him things. And I don't know.
I think Lestat knew better. I think he knew better.
He probably did. I don't think he cared. But he was happy to turn Claudia because he saw it as potentially a way to. I believe Louis had just left, if I remember correctly. I think he had just left, like said, "I'm done with you," or something to that effect. And like, I don't know that he. I'm a little unclear. I wonder if anyone else had a definite thought, especially anyone that's read the book. I'm a little unclear about whether Louis attacked her. out of a sense of mercy because she was all alone in a city full of plague and he thought he was doing her a favor, or if just his hunger got the better of him and he lost control. I'm not.
I think it was a mixture of both, but I think the
Okay.
reason Lestat turned her was for two reasons. I think
Oh.
he thought that it was going to give Louis a better companion, and he thought that he would have a pupil that he could mold.
Yeah. He saw a chance to mold young minds, and he saw a way to leverage control over Louis. So yeah, he absolutely did for impure reasons. I have no doubt. And yeah, I am fascinated by the way they did Claudia. I think it's because yes, you have this character who, if you give a child, or I mean, she's an older child, but she's still basically a child. Immense power and strength, and an urge to kill, without the ability to reason things through that an adult would have. They literally do create a monster, but over time, that does mellow out. And there we have the second part of it that Dave already mentioned, that she's never going to grow up. Forget growing old, she's never going to grow up. And that would be something that will absolutely mess with you. We discussed a long time ago, and I know Tammy, you're not a big anime person. I don't know if Dave made you watch this or not, but we did discussion on Mermaid Scar, where it was a similar thing where a child became an immortal who could never grow up, and he became twisted, to put it mildly. So in this one, I think if Claudia had been with Lestat alone, she would have become an absolute monster. But because she had Louis by her side, she was able to rein those in and become almost decent. But
Right.
still, you do start to sympathize with her because of the predicament she's in. But she definitely hit the ground running as a very monstrous vampire at first. So it's kind of interesting. It's like,
Thanks to Lestat. I mean,
yeah,
she would sit there. They said that in the interview, Louis says that they would take out whole families.
yeah,
Go do a piano recital.
yeah.
And they would go to town afterwards.
And there's a couple times Lestat has to chastise her for killing in their own home. Like, he's like,
that's
don't
a
do
rule.
that.
Yeah, not in the house. Not
Yes.
in the house.
Not in the house. Yeah.
Well, and then there's the day that she found out about, the fact that she will never grow up, and she cut off her hair, which somewhat reminds me of the story of Samson and Delilah, because he cut off his hair and lost his strength. But
that's not what happened here, though.
I know, but still, it was another instance where hair was cut off. Anyways,
it is kind of weird how I understand the idea that vampires heal right away, but hair is basically dead tissue, and I find it interesting that their hair heals too.
Oh yeah, that really pissed her off.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when she was having one of her.
So I guess she became a scream queen early.
Huh.
That was one of her little fits, which was understandable. She's watching people grow up and grow older all around her, and she's seeing beautiful women, and knowing that she will never be one. And Lestat likes to say it to her too. You will never be that.
Yeah.
He's just cruel that way.
And this is one of the reasons why I give Dunst credit, because I think at that point, I feel like Louis said specifically at that point that she had been a vampire for 30 years. And I don't know how much longer the story progresses. Not a huge degree longer. I think it's maybe, 2 or 3 years or something that they traveled across Europe. And of course, when they get to Paris, it's the beginning of the end. But yeah, so she basically spent 30 odd years as a vampire. So she had to show being an adult trapped in a child's body. And I think she did a pretty good job of it. So, props to her for that.
Right, when she was doing that interview that I watched after the
Yeah.
movie, behind the scenes, she
Yeah.
said that was the hardest part was trying to portray these emotions and things out, and she was still a child,
Right.
So she said that was really hard, because she said she had to portray like a woman's emotions, but in a child's body, So, but not long after this, she basically she has had it with Lestat.
Mhm.
Claudia she's had it with him. And one of the rules is not to drink after they're already dead. You don't drink dead blood.
Right.
So she offers up these young twins as a peace offering to Lestat. And little did he know that, I forgot what she said she used, but it makes.
I think she said laudanum.
What is that?
It's a pretty well known drug. It's a form of opium, or rather, an opium derivative, I guess you could say.
To see that I never understood, because I didn't understand what it was.
Right.
All I know is it made them evidently made them still seem warm and everything, and the blood warm. But yes. So Lestat drinks from these twins. The blood is dead, so he starts having convulsions and everything. And at this time, she cuts his neck, and basically, it seems like she has killed Lestat. So her and Louis dispose of him in the swamp. And that's when they it's just the two of them, and they are making plans to go to Paris, I believe, at the time. They're getting all packed up and everything else, and guess who comes back? The reptilian Lestat. He's like, how are you here? Well, ask the alligator. And the snakes and the frogs, He's listing off, all the creatures you find in the swamp. And then I like the line that it comes to, and he's like, Claudia, you've been a very, very naughty girl. And boom. You could tell that he's got a lot of his strength back, a lot, to move like that. But he still looks kind of reptilian.
Well, and Louis, then in protection of the little girl, Claudia, he throws a lantern onto the floor, and immediately it's right in front of Lestat, and Lestat he goes ablaze.
That was quite a scene with him and Blaze like that, because he was on the wall, on the ceiling. He was just everywhere, you know. So when they did that scene, that was quite a scene.
He was a little hot under the collar.
Yeah, but that's when they finally make the journey, and he's Louis talking about, you know, how everything was so dark and that the water was so dark, and you know, he said, unfortunately the ship was very clear of rats, but somehow there was a disease and they weren't affected.
Yeah, somehow.
But yes, when they get over to Paris, you know, Louis just showers her, you know, the beautiful dresses, takes her to all these, you know, takes her everywhere, shows her that, you know, just treats her like a, a little princess,
A
you
little
know.
queenie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we meet Louis was out one night, and this is one of my favorite scenes. And he comes across Santiago, and I remember seeing this scene for the first time, and I thought it was just, I got a kick out of it how he is, you know, totally mimicking him, and you know, and they were talking behind the scenes about how they did that with him walking upside down and walking up the wall and upside down and everything.
First, I'm not sure I heard you mention, but before settling in Paris, they went all over trying to find other vampires. And
montage.
yeah, but like striking out, they find rumors or folklore or legends, but nothing substantive. And then I think the line he says, like the scene you're talking about, I think he said that when I given up looking for vampires, that's when one found me. I was like,
right.
something to that.
I did like that moment when Claudia walked into a doll shop and the doll maker was like, "You will never be able to afford this."
That was way long ago.
I know.
And she made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Yep.
And right about here too, Louis was talking with Christian Slater, and he's like, you know, it's like you were saying, they were going all over the place trying to find other vampires, and he's like, so there's no vampires in Transylvania, and he goes, no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's naming off other things, and he's going, nope, that was folklore, nope, that was legend, nope, that was make believe, and you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, he did say that, you know, he looked all over, and then a vampire found him, and then he was not impressed with Santiago at all. He was annoyed with him.
Yeah.
And then we meet Armand for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And yes,
I like how he proffered that letter. It was very unique.
Just when Luis had just about enough of Santiago, Armand shows up, and yes, and that's when he says, you know, that was another one, you know, this is what I found, you know, and all of my looking, this is what I come to find.
Yeah.
And he gives them the card about coming to the theater and tells them he'll be safe at the theater. And yes, the theater, it's when they do come to the theater, that scene is really neat. I mean, I like how the theater, the scene, that how they make it look, and even when you see the back part of the theater later, and the underneath, I think how they did that was really neat. you know.
And I like how Louis actually says it. Vampires trying to hide that they're vampires while masquerading as vampires.
Well, it's like vampires masquerading as humans, masquerading as vampires, or something like that.
Yep, that's exactly how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that concept very amusing.
Mm-hmm.
Even Anne Rice said something about that when they were doing the interview with her, you know.
The whole idea of hiding in plain sight, right? Yeah. Or it could even be like a Clark Kent thing, you know. No one catches on because no one expects it. You know?
Right. He looks totally different with a pair of glasses on. Yes.
Exactly.
But
Or it's not, he can't be Superman because Superman doesn't wear glasses. You know. Well, yeah.
So what did you guys think of this whole vampire trying to be human, but trying to be a vampire, but portraying a vampire?
It's an interesting concept, but I have to admit that I was underwhelmed by this gaggle of vampires. I tended to agree with Louis of just being kind of annoyed by them. You know?
French mime vampire was the most annoying.
So what'd you think of their play?
It was interesting what they were actually doing on stage and getting away with. I did see that. It was kind of interesting. And again, it fits into that concept of what can you make people accept, you know?
And yes,
Well, I
these
imagine
people were all
company
for it.
was-
They were just,
Yeah.
you know, even that one lady stood up, take me, I love you, you know,
Yeah.
because she's not realizing that this is really happening,
Yeah.
you know.
Careful what you wish for and all that.
She doesn't. Yeah, they don't realize that this is not just acting. That, you know, they did just kill that girl right in front of you, people. Really.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, in fact, Louis seems a little bit disgusted with the whole production.
Mm-hmm.
And then Armand takes him and shows him the whole underground and everything, and he gets to sample Armand's little man, little
Mm-hmm.
boy.
Mm-hmm.
And Louis has got like 20 million questions for Armand, and Armand's kind of like, well, didn't your maker? And Louis is like, no, he didn't tell me anything. All he ever said is that, you know, we go back to that he gave him the choice. And he said that is about the only thing he did.
Mm-hmm.
So, but unfortunately for Louis and Claudia, the rest of the brood, especially Santiago, is definitely one that can read minds, and he keeps getting even though they're not saying Lestat's name, he hears Lestat's name in Louis' mind, and he hears how Louis is thinking about that. You know, maybe he judged Lestat too harshly and things like that, and he tells Louis that there's only one rule of vampires: you cannot kill a fellow vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And or that's the main rule or the cardinal rule or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the other vampires realize that basically two wrongs have been done. Not only is they come to realize that Claudia is the one that killed Lestat, and Claudia should never have been made.
Right.
So there's two strikes right there against poor Louis and Claudia in the rest of the vampires' eyes. Armand is the only one that's more open-minded about the whole thing, but we come to realize that Armand has been around, as he says, for 400 years. And as far as he knows, he is the oldest vampire.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And meanwhile, the youngest vampire, Claudia, ends up having Louis turn a woman for her because she wants someone else in their group. Like, I guess you'd say a mother figure.
well, she's afraid Armand is going to take Louis away
yes,
from her.
Yes. She says, before you go, please leave someone with me, you know. And she finds a willing participant. Unfortunately, they don't realize that the timing was pretty bad. Yeah.
Yes, she just actually becomes, and that's it. She never even tastes blood or anything, you know.
Right, because I believe they're captured like right after she turns.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the scene that if there's one scene in the movie I have always remembered and will probably always remember, it's they capture the three of them, and Louis is imprisoned in a coffin that's a little bit too small for him, and walled into the wall, like what was the Poe? Was it the Cask of Amontillado? Or the Telltale Heart? No, Telltale Heart was below the floorboards. What was the one? Was it the Black Cat? I think it was. Where the guy.
Pit the Pendulum?
It might have been the Pit and the Pendulum. The one where the guy is bricked into the wall. That's basically what happens with him. And meanwhile, Claudia and her new friend are put in what is basically a large well that's open at the top so the sun can shine in. And Armand releases Louis just too late. And yeah, that scene of the two of them as the sun is approaching, and then when Louis finally breaks in and sees what's left, I always remember that. I'm like, that was a memorable sequence.
Oh yes, most definitely. You know.
I thought his revenge scene was also quite memorable. That was one of the bloodiest scenes in the movie.
And Armand knew he was going to do it, and he even says something to him later. You knew I was going to. You didn't stop me.
Mm-hmm.
He basically told him, "Hey, I knew my people had lost their way, and they'd forgotten how to be a true vampire."
Right. He is apparently willing to overlook that you don't kill other vampires rule. In at least this one instance.
Well, the gentleman that plays Santiago in the interview, he said the part where Louis cuts him in half,
mm-hmm.
he had to lay there and with his arm in his head and for like an hour for doing the scene with this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know, when they first set it up, they're like, "Oh, it'll just be a moment." And he's like, "Well, how long is your moment?" And they told him, well, about an hour. And he goes, "Oh, that was terrible to have to lay there like that," you know.
Well, apparently the makeup process was pretty horrendous too, and that was one of the reasons why Pitt didn't like it so much. But yeah, they had impressive makeup, but time consuming. But yeah, they had an actual scythe that was it was a prop for the play, but it was an actual functioning scythe. And when Louis goes and gets his revenge sequence. He's going around whipping that thing around, cutting off heads, it was pretty brutal.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Does anybody have anything else to fill it up to this? Because that was basically the big climax right there.
Well, yeah. That I do have to agree that revenge scene was pretty awesome. Yeah, it was one of the bloodiest scenes in the movie, but nowadays I call that a little bit tame.
Well, I mean, yeah, they could have gone worse, but I mean, geez, yeah, Stephen Ray gets sliced in half, and they definitely show some of the viscera and so forth. It was interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the show, so I don't know if they went harder on the violence in that or not. But I don't know if you guys have.
We watched it for I think maybe the first season, and there was some violence in it, and some bloodiness, but
I don't think we were vibing with the characters, so we stopped watching it.
Weren't vibing, huh?
Well, at least not me. I know other people seem to like it.
The only person I found really interesting, like in the series where we were starting to watch it, was the actual interviewer. Okay, I liked him, and I liked the things that he, his whole character, but it was like the rest of it was kind of, it was losing me,
Okay.
But yep. After the big revenge, then then you have Armand and Louis having their talk, and Louis is like, "Thanks for the offer, but I'm gonna go my own way," and that's what they get so close. I mean, so close. You think they actually are going to kiss? They are so close. And they go their separate ways, and Louis goes back to, like he says, goes back to New Orleans, and we see him at a theater so he finally got to see the sunlight again, but through a movie.
Right.
And as he's leaving there, he comes across, of all people, Lestat again. And he is just a shell of a.
Well, I think they started another montage basically where he basically goes through the years through movies, and then I believe it takes him up to the 80s, and that I think was when he met Lestat again, right? In the 80s.
Yep.
Yeah. So almost
Superman 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they start with Sunrise, A Tale of Two Humans, and then as he's leaving the theater, he's leaving Tequila Sunrise. So he seems to have a thing for those kind of movies. But that was when, I guess on a whim, he decided to go back to his old home, and that's where he found him, I think.
He said he smelled death, but it was old death.
Yeah.
This woman met with us face to face.
Right, and he comes across Lestat, who is just like a shell of a vampire right now.
Right.
And Lestat is actually scared of him. And then, there was a helicopter, shines its light, he freaks out, and he's telling him that light's not going to hurt you, That's not real light,
Right.
And so then we basically get to the conclusion of the interview. And Christian Slater, after everything, still he wants to be a vampire. And Louis like, did you not listen to anything?
Right. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Yeah. Apparently not.
Apparently not. And then he takes off and doesn't realize he's got a passenger in his convertible Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
And the start with his famous saying, I'll give you the choice I never had.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And of course, the Sympathy for the Devil is playing.
Yes, but a GNR version apparently. Interesting cover.
David and I were talking about that at the end. I said, I know that's not who originally did it, and I could hear it, and I'm like, no, that's Guns N' Roses.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Any other thoughts?
Mm. Pretty well.
Then I guess we should progress on to production.
Yes.
So, I guess I'll kind of go first. I think they did with the costumes. I think they did an excellent job of the different time periods and the way of and the different areas that they were in, like the New Orleans and then Paris and here, with all the different areas they were. And we've already touched upon the makeup was great on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much they did like it, I think they did a great job on all the makeup.
Apparently, the movie was up for 2 Oscars, and one of them was for art direction, set decoration. Definitely, in terms of the locations and the sets, I agree they did a really good job there. Costumes as well, yeah.
That theater was just awesome. I thought.
Yeah.
That was just really good. It's not just the inside of the theater, but then when you saw the backdraft of it, the back part and the underneath of it too was just phenomenal.
Yeah, production design I thought was really excellent for the film. Be it the scene where he's setting the whole house on fire, the various set pieces all over the world. Well, really more Europe and New Orleans, and San Francisco, but still. And just in general, the effects when he's going around slashing up the vampires. That also is a very impressive scene for a '94 movie.
So yeah, did you have anything else to say about production, David?
I thought the production itself was awesome. I have a lot of negativity towards one particular actor of the film, but just because I have a dislike for the actor in that role doesn't mean that the production wasn't like spot on. I feel like they definitely got the era of when things were happening while they were happening, and to be able to show a progression of time periods like that in almost like vignettes in a sense, I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, because he's in the interview, he's telling them that he's been around for 200 years. So through this, we're seeing
a progression of time.
A progression of time of 200 years. So, yeah, I think they did a really good job of that. Anybody else have anything to say about that? Is that it on production?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
As far as music goes, I don't normally know all the background like you guys do as far as music. I mean, of course, we know "Sympathy for the Devil" is in it at the end.
Well, they also they did a few classical pieces like
Was there an actual score?
what's that?
Was there an actual score?
There was, and it was not, and the other Oscar nod was for the score, and
Okay.
it was, I think, Elliot Goldenthal. It's a good score, I think, but they definitely used some classical pieces because he has Claudia learn the piano, and as we said before, Lestat himself can play the piano, so they have a few of those mixed in. I think overall they used music well, but it's not a movie I'd write home about for the music. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
Well, I guess we'll go to favorite characters, favorite scenes, and what is your, we'll throw it in the what is your favorite vampire movie?
oh, okay.
So, we'll start with Brandon.
Well, I mean, favorite character, I'll go with Kirsten Dunst's character. Favorite scene, I actually like the scene at the end where Lestat comes back in there. I just thought that was cool. Favorite vampire movie. Right now my head isn't working right, so I'll say vampires suck.
your head isn't working right. You are correct.
Oh God, that movie sucked. I within the first like 30 seconds of it, I turned it off.
I actually was able to watch it and get some enjoyment out of it, but it was yeah.
Okay, well, how about you, Jake?
Well, favorite character, I've got to go with Claudia is probably my favorite one. As far as scenes, like I said, the most memorable scene for me is the scene where Claudia and the other woman are trapped in the well and turned to ash. I would not call that a favorite scene, but it's the most memorable one. But if I were doing a favorite scene, that's a little harder to call. Maybe I don't know, man. I'm not sure about a favorite. I'm having trouble picking one that really jumps out. There's a lot of little bits I like. Again, Louis' reaction to the interviewer when he's like, "Were you not listening to my story?" I enjoyed that, and the revenge sequence on the vampires in Paris, the revenge on Lestat, dumping him in a swamp. I enjoyed that. That poor swamp. But anyway, favorite vampire movie. I think I am going to have to go with Let the Right One In because that was a phenomenal movie. I have a feeling that if I really thought about it, I'd come up with others in that ballpark, but that is probably my favorite.
Okay, how about you, David?
Well, favorite character is Louis. That's my favorite character. I like Brad Pitt in that character, and I thought it would have been interesting. No, it would have been interesting if Tom Cruise had played Louis and Louis had played Lestat.
I think Anne Rice made the same suggestion at one point. Like,
Like, I'm not quite sure. You know, it's
right.
I just think it was a bad choice all around that way. As far as favorite scenes, I'm gonna have to go with the revenge sequence. The revenge sequence was pretty cool. I liked when Claudia got her revenge on Lestat by bringing those two twins, and they were already dead. And she said she mixed them with laudanum.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting twist or trick. And as far as favorite vampire movie, I'm gonna have to go with Nosferatu the Vampire. That's the second adaptation of Nosferatu.
Is that the Werner Herzog one?
Yeah, that's the Werner Herzog one.
Okay. Still need to see that.
So for me, my favorite character is Armand. Favorite scene, like everybody else, there's quite a few. I mean, I really love when he meets Santiago the first time. I think that is just, it's funny, it's neat, you know. I do like the whole revenge thing. That was quite a scene. And I like the theater, not so much what they put on. I just liked the look of the theater itself, you know. My favorite vampire movie is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay. The Coppola film?
Huh?
The Coppola film?
Yeah. Coppola?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She always refers to it as Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Right. Well, that's technically what it's called, I think. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well,
Right.
if nobody else has anything, I guess we'll do our outros.
Okay.
Brandon, you want to go first?
I'm SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the world. You can check out our channel. We do a lot of stuff. We were going to do a pickup video this week, but we'll get it done next week. But check out the reviews that we did. I did one for Camp Blood, Children of Camp Blood last week. So check that out, and our City Hunter discussion.
Okay. Jake?
Well, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host at times, SeptumSin versus the world. And basically, I just I don't come down with something because I was out on a hike yesterday in pretty cold temps, but pretty much spending most of my time either at work or writing or getting out and about, trying to enjoy a little bit of nature. Been kind of putting most viewing on the back burner for now, but I'm still watching stuff to join these our discussions. And obviously, it's been my birthday month. I'm looking forward to what we have in store. And
Yes, our birthdays are pretty close together, so.
yeah, it's gonna be good times.
Because what day is yours?
What's that?
What day is yours again?
And it's toward the end of the month.
Well, mine's the 21st.
Which actually, I'm probably going to be, a knock on wood, I'll probably be out of state for both of those for that whole weekend. But yeah, it's going to be good times.
Yeah, no, I know yours was not much further away from them because mine's the 21st. So.
Right.
Okay. David?
Well, how about I ask you to go first so that I can take us out in the
Okay.
in there. So, Tammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I go on this channel and another one with David and talk about movies and check out other people's interests in movies and watch um a lot of a lot of interesting things. Don't always like all the interesting things, but that doesn't mean they're not interesting. But and basically just trying to stay busy with work because um, with, it's winter time, so I am not out playing with my car right now. So
Okay. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey we've been having. I think we've all enjoyed discussing this movie. Hopefully, you've enjoyed our discussion on the film. If you would like to let us know down in the comments what you thought of this film and our discussion, let us know. But I do moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I go on almost every Sunday, and we discuss films there as well. I do believe we just recently talked about Forbidden Planet for the first time on that show, and so on and so forth. And I think we'll be covering the American version of The Ring next week, Sunday. So look out for that. But I do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time. So definitely check some of those out. And hopefully you'll come back with us next week as we honor David Lynch with
Yes.
a film that I know that Jake put forward. So I believe it's Mulholland Drive, correct?
Yes, yes. The movie that started life as a TV pilot and went on to become, according to the critics, the greatest American film of the last 20 years and 25 years at this point. But seems like a fitting tribute to Mr. Lynch.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great evening, morning, or whatever, and we will all bid you adieu. So everyone say good night.
I like to bite your neck.
Good night, everybody.
Inside movie.